Hey everybody, welcome to the GameChanger Lacrosse podcast. I'm your host, Joe Evoli. The GameChanger Lacrosse podcast is about talking to people who have dedicated their life to the game of lacrosse and learning about who they are, how they got to where they are today, and what they do to improve themselves and their teams. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at GC Sports, and if you're a coach or a parent, check out GameChanger Team Manager in the App Store. You can ditch the emails and spreadsheets. The free GameChanger Team Manager app streamlines communication, scheduling, and live scoring into one easy-to-use app. GameChanger Team Manager is 100% free for your entire team. Learn more at gc.com/team manager or search for GameChanger Team Manager in the App Store. Today in the show, we have the head coach of Sacred Heart University, Jon Basti. Coach Basti is a graduate of Fairfield University. He started his coaching career at Sacred Heart. He then moved on to be the head coach at Eastern Connecticut State. He then went back to his alma mater to be an assistant coach at Fairfield. After Fairfield, he was the assistant coach at Lafayette before moving on to Hartford. He's now in his 6th year as the head coach at Sacred Heart. Since taking over as head coach, Coach Basti has led his team to their winningest seasons in program history. Today in the show, Coach Basti and I got a chance to talk about making quick decisions, routines, having fun, loving where you go to school, bringing the dive back, and much more. Here's my interview with Coach Basti. Coach Basti, welcome to the show.
Hey, Joe, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on, but let's get started like I always do. How'd you get started playing lacrosse?
Actually, I was a hockey player, and one of my friends that I played hockey with showed up one day to school with a lacrosse stick, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. And it turns out a couple of friends of our families, a family that we used to hang around with, because the guy that I used to play baseball with, this kid, Glenn Tuma, mm-hmm. His two older, the whole Tuma family played lacrosse, and his older brother Gary played at BC when BC had a team, and his his middle brother, who's still older than him, Craig, played at Providence, and this kid Glenn was a year older than me, and like we were family friends, and our families did everything together. They were babysitting me, for lack of a better term. One day I was hanging out with them, and they were like, "Hey, check this out," and they gave me a lacrosse stick, and that was back in like 6th grade, I think. And ever since then, I was interested in it. And in New Jersey, back when I was little, when I was growing up, there was no lacrosse except all year round, really, except for Rutgers lacrosse camp in the summer. Mm-hmm. And so I go 2 weeks at Rutgers lacrosse camp every summer, back when camp was like 6 days long. Mm-hmm. And so I used to do that, and it was a lot of fun. And then when I went to high school, I started playing freshman year, and that was pretty much it. Playing freshman lacrosse at St. Joe's High School in Metuchen, which was interesting. Very interesting.
And so was it just lacrosse, or did you continue playing hockey and any other sports?
Oh, I continued playing hockey, and I actually played baseball too. I played American Legion baseball. I would go from lacrosse practice in high school right after school to American Legion practice at like 6 o'clock. Pretty much every day from April, and starting in April or the end of April into May. And I played hockey for club in New Jersey and also for high school. So I was pretty busy from like September, really the whole year. Club hockey started in like August.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, but it was fun, man. I love playing. Hockey is like my favorite sport. I love playing hockey. I think you can learn a lot from playing hockey for any sport. And we use a lot of hockey terminology in our program. We have a lot of hockey players on our team, and we recruit hockey players. Right. I think they're a special breed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, hockey definitely seems like a skill set that translates really well to lacrosse. Can you talk about maybe some of the things that you learned from hockey that you brought into your lacrosse game?
Compete level, I think, is the number one thing. Being able to make decisions very quickly, offensively and defensively, and like really kind of not really having the ability to do a lot being coached while you're playing. Like you can be coached when you're on the bench, but when you're on the ice, it's like you have to make decisions it's so fast.
Right.
I think I learned that was something that was really important to me in playing lacrosse. Is I was able to really take that skill set of making quick decisions on the ice and put that on the lacrosse field, and it kind of made lacrosse made picking up the game and learning the game of lacrosse a little bit easier.
Right.
Because I took it from like that hockey perspective.
Right.
But the compete level and the toughness is definitely the number one and two things I learned from playing hockey.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And I'm curious because we don't have a lot of baseball players on the show. Do you feel like there was anything you learned from baseball? Yeah.
I know that might be that's like sacrilegious, but I love baseball, man. I'm a huge Mets fan, and you can laugh, but I'm a huge Mets fan, and I've always been a huge Mets fan. My family are big baseball people, and I love baseball. I love the chess match of it, and
right.
I like being a baseball fan and watching a lot of baseball all year round. I just feel like that when it's like a tight game, especially in the playoffs or late in the season, when it's a tight game and you're winning in the ninth inning and your closer's in the game, there's so much stress in that moment, and it's like every pitch is so important.
Right.
It's just a cool feeling to see that and to be part of that. But I just think back to like watching in 2015 and like every pitch of the playoffs with the Mets. It was so important and it was so gut wrenching.
Right.
And the same thing in like 06, 07, and 08, and then in 99, 2000, 2001. It was so exciting those times for me as a Mets fan. And in 86, it was like so and in 88 too. It was so like every pitch was just, oh God, it was rough.
Right.
It was so much fun. It's like, I think that's the best thing about sports. You know what I mean?
So I think you're totally right. Baseball has it's got a lot of pressure. It teaches you how to play well under pressure, but also the strategic aspect, which you touched on a lot. That's the stuff that I really like. It is like playing a chess game. It's like playing a 3-hour chess game, basically.
Yeah, 3 hours. That's
right.
That's probably the negative part of it, but it's like
right.
I love going to baseball games too. It's like so much fun going to Citi Field or going to Yankee Stadium. And I'm a big fan of, like, if I'm in a different city for a recruiting event in the summer, I like to go to different games. And
you go to a baseball game?
Except Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, I'll never go there.
Yeah, that's been. I can definitely respect that. Although I'm surprised to talk to somebody who's from New Jersey that's a Mets fan, not a Yankees fan. I thought it went the other way.
So I was originally born in Brooklyn, New York, and I lived in Brooklyn until I was about 10 or 11 years old.
Okay.
And I had split. My family was split. Half my family were Mets fans, half my family were Yankee fans. Mm-hmm. And my first baseball game was a Yankee game. My aunt, who used to watch me, and my mom my mom was a school teacher, so when she was at work, I went to my aunt's house during the day, who lived like in the next apartment older from us.
Right.
And she was a huge Yankee fan. She loved Ron Guidry. But for some reason, I just became a Mets fan. I don't understand why. I did. I just became a Mets fan, and ever since then, I've absolutely loved them.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with that. I got a lot of friends who are Mets fans, and I feel like you have a greater appreciation for winning and for the hardships in life when you're a Met fan.
Ain't that the truth? Oh,
God. But let's move on to your time in college. What made you decide on Fairfield?
It's funny. I was actually going to Providence. Like I was signed. I wanted to go to Holy Cross. That was the place I wanted to go to. For me, when I was like a junior, sophomore in high school, I really wanted to go to Navy. Like I wanted to be in the Naval. I wanted to go to the Naval Academy. I wanted to be in the Navy, but I just didn't have the grades to get in there at all.
Right.
I was a pretty good student, but nowhere near that. My SATs were not good. Mm-hmm. And so then I was like, okay, Holy Cross is really, really cool. I had a couple friends that graduated from my high school that were playing in Holy Cross, so I went and checked it out. I loved it, but I couldn't get in. Again, SAT issues. And so I was like, all right, I applied to Providence. And I got in, and I loved Providence, but I just wasn't like completely sold on it. Like, I don't know why. I didn't really like the city. I didn't want to be in the city. I loved Providence, the city. I didn't like being in the city.
Right.
And so one of the same family, the Tuma family, their sister, Heather Tuma, played field hockey at Fairfield.
Mm-hmm.
So one day she was like, "Hey man, she said to my mom, like, why don't you guys come up and check it out?" I was like, "Yeah, so let's see what it's like." So we went up there and we met with her and I toured the campus, and it was one of those things where as soon as I drove on the campus, I looked at my mom and I was like, "I'm going to school here. Like, I'm going to school here." I was already like going to Providence. I was already had deposited in, like I was already set. But I was like, I really want to, and so I ended up going to Fairfield. And, it wasn't like I was going to be on the lacrosse team at Providence, but I didn't get any scholarship money. So it wasn't like it was really a big deal. So right. I called the coach at Fairfield, who was, oh man, you know what? I forgot who it was, but, it was one individual who ended up leaving before I got there. And then Ted Spencer became my head coach for my freshman year, midway through the year. But, I just knew it. I knew it. Like we drove up to Merritt and I was like, this is interesting. Right. And then when we got to campus, we literally drove on campus and I was just looking around out the window of the car and I was like, this is where I want to go.
Huh. So it sounds like you almost followed your gut a little bit. Is that what you tell the kids when you talk to them about when they're looking for a school, that they need to sort of trust their instincts?
Well, it's funny because I was just having this conversation with one of our family friends, whose daughter is a soccer player and she's a junior. She's looking at schools right now, and she wants to go pre-med. Very bright student, very good soccer player, and she's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do here. Do I go D3? What? She's freaking out, and like
right.
her parents are all freaking out because of the process. And I'm like, listen, the most important thing that I look for and that we tell people is it's all about the school, right? You need to feel comfortable in the school because God forbid something happens to you, right, where you can't play anymore. You have to love where you're going to school,
right? And
there's so many different factors in that, and I think that's something that I did when I got to Fairfield. It's like, I love the school. Right. And, regardless of lacrosse, this is where I was going to go to school.
Right. Gotcha. And when you first arrived on campus, sort of following your gut where it felt right, did you feel like it was a fit right away, or were there any transition issues?
Oh, there's tons of transition issues. I'll be honest, I'm a bit of a mama's boy. It's like I'm a homebody. I love being right. home, and it's hard to get. It's hard. It's like it's when you go from being home and like being in one place and then moving away, even though it was only about 2 hours away, it was still away. Right. And it was, at first it was difficult for me kind of the first couple of weeks. And then I kind of got used to it. I kind of got into a routine and practice started, and it didn't help that we didn't have a coach. Like my freshman year, the month of September, we didn't have a coach. Huh. So we didn't know what the hell was going on. Like right. we kind of practiced a little bit. We kind of did. We had some caps and stuff. And the guys on the team were awesome. Like I loved my teammates, but it was just like, what is going on here? And then we got a coach, and that's when things kind of settled in for me. I became very comfortable in my surroundings, and I started making some new friends, and it ended up being a great year my freshman year. I had a good year. I had a lot of fun.
Well, why do you think it got more comfortable once you guys hired a coach? Did that coach have anything to do with making you feel more comfortable on campus?
I think it was just the fact that there was stability. As a freshman, you have no idea what the hell is going on. Like you're right. freaking out. You have like new classes, new friends. Your parents aren't there. You got to wake up at 6 a.m. for lifting. You got like a class in one side of campus when practice is on the other. You have a classroom here, and then you got to run to another classroom over there. I'm starving. I haven't eaten all day. Right. There's so many things that are, God forbid you have a girlfriend who's at a different school or still home. Those are all, which I had. Mm-hmm. So those are all issues that you have to deal with freshman year. And there was no stability of somebody that's just kind of there to be there if you needed them. And eventually that person showed up for whatever reason, whether or not I used Coach Spencer for that or not. It was just somebody there. It was just right. It was somebody that like kind of started. We started having regular practices, so we had a schedule, and you knew what to expect. And we started our schedule. We started our lift schedule, and so everything was going according to the way I thought it was supposed to be, not the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just kind of settles you down, and it gives you, once you have that routine, it's something you can fall back on, and it's comfort. It's a comfort level that you have with that
Right.
routine that makes things easier.
Right. So what do you do as a head coach, dealing with those freshmen, say, the first couple months of the year? What do you do to sort of make them feel more comfortable those first couple weeks?
I think it starts before they get here, right?
Mm-hmm.
It starts in the summer before, and even during the recruiting process. When they come for their official visits, official visits aren't what they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
You don't now, like when you and I were getting recruited, we took 5 official visits to different schools,
Right.
and funny story when that somebody did a thing last year on Mikey Powell being going to Fairfield for recruiting a visit.
Uh-huh.
Absolute truth. And I hosted him as a senior, just so you know. So those five visits were big then, because that made you decide where you were going to go to college. Now, our official visits are our committed kids. So we bring them in for a game. They come and they watch the game. They hang out with the guys. And so I think it starts there even before that in the summer, because now all these kids know each other, whether it's through club or high school. They're all friends with each other. And because of social media, as soon as you get a kid committed, as soon as we commit a kid, all the guys in our team are automatically looking up their highlights and automatically trying to find them and friending them on Facebook and stuff. And not Facebook. Nobody uses Facebook except old people. On Twitter and Instagram.
Right.
And so they become familiar with these people, and these people become familiar with them. And I think our culture is such with our program to where it's a very inclusive culture, to where no matter who you are, where you're from, what you're doing, none of that matters. All that matters is that you're part of our team, part of our family, and our guys treat each other as such.
Right.
We have a good leadership group. We have a good kind of secondary leadership group that really helps with that. And it's they're a good group of kids that really take care of each other. And then when they get here, they're already friends with each other. And it also doesn't hurt that we're communicating with them constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And they can see everything on social media, like what we're doing, what the teams do.
Right.
So they almost feel part of the program before they get here.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. There's a little bit less of a surprise element because they've already been following you guys and people have been watching them. So they feel a little bit more comfortable those first couple weeks and months.
Yeah.
Right.
And our guys do a great job of making them feel that way. They're not treated as freshmen. They're just treated as teammates.
Right. Gotcha. So let's go back to the start of your coaching career. What made you want to start coaching?
So I think it was at some point. I was thinking about this actually after I saw your questions. I don't remember. It was at some point in high school, my senior year in high school. I was just like, you know what? I really like lacrosse, and I wanted to be a teacher. And so I thought this is perfect. I can teach and coach lacrosse and teach high school social studies, that's what I have my master's in. And I can coach lacrosse. And then as I was going through college, my sophomore year in college, I blew out my knee, so I couldn't play anymore. It was like I was done. My knee exploded, and I was finished.
Right.
And so I instead of not playing anymore, that year, Coach Eric Feckett was actually our assistant coach, and Ted Spencer was our head coach, and they asked me if I wanted to kind of be like a student assistant. And at first I was like, I don't want to be just some manager, like hanging around getting balls. And they're like, no. You student assistant, like you run the box during games and you help with game plans. And they promised me they would never put me in a situation that would make me uncomfortable, and they never did. In the 2.5 years I did this, I was never in an uncomfortable situation. And I thank them for that. They never, so that they put me in a position to be successful, and I learned a lot. And that's when I realized, like, coaching is pretty cool. It's hard. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And
right.
I thought that, like, because of the impact it had on me, maybe it could, who knows what it could do for somebody else. And so that's kind of when it really happened. A little started in high school, just from one aspect, and then kind of kept getting the idea and the mindset kept getting stronger and stronger through college. And then when I graduated college, I ended up doing my master's at Fairfield And the media center, I'd worked there multiple hours a week doing a lot of different things, film editing and some stuff like that. Then I was coaching. I coached at Fairfield in 2000 as as a volunteer assistant.
Right.
And then I left there and I came here at Sacred Heart for 2 years, for 2001 and 2002, while I was getting my master's degree. So that kind of solidified what I wanted to do. And I was still going to go with high school coaching and teaching the high school teaching and coaching route. But then an opportunity opened up at Eastern Connecticut to be a head coach. And I was like, that sounds pretty cool.
Right.
So I went and did that.
So talk about how did that first job at Sacred Heart as an assistant come about?
Well, I just known Coach Mariano from working with him at Blue Chip Camp in the summer at Fairfield, and just being in the same town and play. I think we played in post college club together a little bit for a couple of years, but we had been friends, and it was that one summer of 2000 where I was just like, I kind of got to get away from Fairfield. I got to get out of here, and I was in school here. Like didn't feel comfortable coaching there anymore, and so. But I'm still getting my master's. So I thought, okay, well, Sacred Heart's in town and they're a D1 school. They might need a coach. So I just called him, and he kind of gave me a little bit of an interview during camp. And then he called me a couple of days later and asked me if I wanted to come over here and work with him. And I did. And it was a good move. I learned a lot. Met a lot of really cool people, a lot of which are still here at Sacred Heart in the administration. But a lot of guys that played for me then are alumni now, and it was kind of one of those things where when I got the job here in 2013, it made things a little bit easier because I already know a lot of people. So it was pretty cool. I think it was a great move for me, and Coach Mariano was nice enough to give me the opportunity. So it was a good move. It was fun.
Gotcha. And if you don't mind me asking, what about what made you uncomfortable coaching at Fairfield? Was it just because you were coaching with a bunch of former teammates?
Yeah, it was all my guys. It was all my friends.
Right.
So I was like, at this point, it was like I was in a different role. I wasn't just a student assistant anymore.
Right.
And I didn't feel comfortable being like, you were screwing up and yelling at them because they were my friends, and it was awkward.
Gotcha.
And as a college kid, I was still a college kid.
Right.
I didn't know what I was doing. Like it was just something that I didn't think was a good situation for me. And after talking to Feck and talking to Coach Spencer, I just thought it was the right move for me to come over here. And, there was a lot of people and my parents too. My parents were very big. I talked to my dad a lot about it. He's like, my dad played football in college, so he understood that whole thing. And he was like, I get it. I understand what you're saying. So, but it ended up being a good opportunity for me. And, it was hard being here though, because it was a volunteer job, but I was still going to school, working. And then my second year I was student teaching. So I was going to school all day teaching. And student teaching is a full-time job.
Right.
So during the season in the spring, I was student teaching, going to class at night, and then working at night and on the weekends at the media center. So it was long days, man, but it was worth it. It was 100% worth it. And it taught me a lot about like prioritizing and work ethic.
And so you mentioned, after Sacred Heart, you got the head coaching job at Eastern Connecticut State. How did that come about, especially since, you only had a few years of assistant coach experience at Sacred Heart?
Honestly, I have no idea how I got that job. I have no idea. Let's say that right out. I knew about Eastern Connecticut because my best friend played lacrosse there, Eddie Sheehan. He's like the all-time leading scorer in New Jersey history before Pasquet came around. And we played together in high school, and we were best friends. And he went to school there, and he was one of the best players in Eastern Connecticut history. I believe he's in the Hall of Fame at Eastern Connecticut. And they were really, really good. I mean, Eastern Connecticut was a top 10. My 2 years there, we were top 10, top 15 in D3 for 2 years. And before I got there, they were Rick McCarthy had done a great job of bringing in a lot of transfers and getting a lot of players that were really D1 players that ended up just not making it for some reason in D1 and just ended up there. And it was great. They were great kids, and they were very good lacrosse players. Right. And so he retired, and then Eddie called me, and my buddy Eddie he was graduating. But he called me. He was like, "Hey, listen, Coach McCarthy's retiring. Are you interested in this? And I was like, yeah. And I had known a lot of the guys that were there because I knew a lot of the people that were a lot of the alumni, a lot of the guys that played with Eddie. Right. I knew them just from going and seeing him and hanging out with him up there at Eastern and going to their games a lot when I could. So I got to know a lot of those kids, which were then alumni. So they helped me, and I got the job there. And
gotcha.
It was a learning experience. I'll tell you that much. It was a learning.
Yeah. So that was my next question. Especially because it's your first head coaching job. What were some of the things that you learned those years you were at Eastern Connecticut?
I learned that something that Coach McCarthy told me the first thing he told me when I got the job. I was sitting in his office because he was still in admissions there, and I was sitting in his office. He goes, "John, it's not just about drawing man up plays." And I was like, "Oh boy, what did I get myself into?" And he's right. It was not about drawing man up plays.
Right.
There was so many other things that went into being a head coach. That it was difficult. It was hard, and I was not prepared mentally or emotionally to do that. I was not I worked really hard, and I wanted to be great, and I tried, and everybody there, everybody tried, and we were a good team on the field, but I was not in the right frame of mind off the field. I don't think I was not prepared for what a head coach really had to do.
Right.
And so it made things for me very difficult. And then I ended up not going back to Eastern Connecticut. And kind of looking back on it, I was kind of at a crossroads in my life. I was like, what am I going to do here? Am I going to continue to try to coach and do this thing, or am I going to try to get a job teaching? I had passed my board, so I was certified to teach. I could have went and got a job, but then I was working summer camp at Fairfield, and that's when Double D, Daryl Delia, was working with Spence over there at Fairfield. It was like summer of 2004,
right.
And they were like, "Hey man, listen, we need a volunteer. Would you want to do that?" Because there was actually only one paid position, assistant position at Fairfield at the time. The second assistant was a volunteer, if you can believe it.
Right.
And so I was like, "Yeah, sounds cool to me. I love Fairfield. I miss being here. It's my alma mater. I feel home. I feel comfortable." And what better place to go than a place where you feel comfortable and you feel at home when
right.
you're kind of in a place where you don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah.
And so I did that, and I called my friends at the Media Center, and they gave me a part-time job there. So I was able to make some money. I started working at Lacrosse Unlimited a bunch. Because Bill Juno, who owned Lacrosse, was an owner of Lacrosse Unlimited, was a friend of mine, and he hired me over down at Lacrosse Unlimited and working camps and clinics and Nutmeg Sunday camps and with Double and doing the stuff with Coach Spencer with the blue chip stuff. I was able to scrounge together enough money to live and to actually to make a pretty good living with the amount of money I was making at camps and stuff like that. Strung a lot of sticks, I'll tell you that much. A lot of sticks that Coach Metzbauer and Coach Tierney will tell you, and Coach Raymond up at Hobart. I used to work Princeton camp with those guys for many years, and they'll tell you there's a lot of sticks being strung in between sessions and at night.
Oh, so. You were talking about stringing sticks at camp. I thought you were talking about stringing sticks at Lacrosse Unlimited.
Oh, both.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just sit in the back of Lacrosse Unlimited, and it would be like one stick after another, another. And then stringing sticks at camp was a pretty good side business. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's. I worked at Lacrosse Unlimited as well, and that's how I learned how to string sticks. Was just sitting in that back room and you string like 30 sticks a day. It was great.
I learned from, I don't know if you remember, but like back when you used to have, you can only buy string kits and like STX string kits. They came with like the cool little STX sticker, which is like the greatest thing ever. There was a booklet, and that's how I learned how to string sticks, through that booklet. What YouTube? There's no YouTube. Who's YouTube?
Yeah,
it was a booklet.
Right. Yeah, it was following that booklet, and then once you understood sort of what was going on, then you were just like, all right, well, how can I do different things? How do I, like copying other players on the field, looking at, I remember looking at Connor Gill before I went to Virginia and noticing that he had a leather stick with the middle leathers pulled really tightly together. And I was like, all right, how do you do that? And you just sit there, trial and error for like hours. Right. until you figured it out. But okay, so you're back at Fairfield now, and then after Fairfield, you end up as head coach at Hartford. How did that job come around?
Well, actually, I went to Lafayette for a year.
Oh, okay.
And so after 2005 was great. We won the Great West at Fairfield my first year back there, and we had a really good team. We had a couple of All-Americans, and we had some really good young players. 2006, we had a good year. We transitioned from the Great West into the ECAC when the ECAC was a brand new league.
Right.
And so 2006, we had some really bad injuries and we lost some really key guys. But we were able to kind of figure it out. And then 2007, we started off tremendously, but then we were like 6-0. We were like number 10 in the country. We beat Bucknell, who was number 12 at the time. And then all of a sudden we just couldn't get out of our own way. We lost a lot of games in 2007. And then after that year, I was just like, I finally become in 2007, the second assistant job at Fairfield finally became full time. So I was actually making a decent salary for the first time in my life.
Right.
But I was just like, it started to creep in my mind again. Where am I doing the right thing? Am I doing what I'm meant to do? And so I decided after the 2007 season that I was just kind of burnt out. After 2 years of working like 6 or 8 jobs, trying to make money, and like 1 year of just trying to figure everything out, I just decided that I didn't want to coach anymore. So I resigned. I resigned from Fairfield, and I decided I started looking for teaching jobs. And that summer I worked a lot of camps and coached a couple of club team. I coached a club team with Coach Delia, and I kind of fell in love with the sport again, during the summer. But I was out. I was done. I was out. I had met this girl. Double, actually, his daughter introduced me to this girl who was a teacher in Brantford, who I ended up eventually getting engaged to and marrying. And so like we would talk about teaching, and she was trying to help me find a teaching job. But then midway through the summer, she's like, "You're not a teacher. You're a coach. You need to coach." And I was like, "All right, it's amazing how that happens,
Right. Yeah. Somebody pushed in the right direction, right?
Yeah, and like she changed my world. She gave me a lot of confidence, and she was a great support system for me, as well as my parents. Again, my family's very tight. I have a very tight, old school Brooklyn Italian family, and we're a very tight group of people. And my dad is my hero. He's a tremendous individual, and my mom just such a hard worker. And I learned a lot from them, in between those two and my then girlfriend, Megan is her name. They were like, "You're a coach, man. You got to coach." And so I called Coach Mangan down at Lafayette. I saw there was a job open. It was kind of late in the summer, and he was like, "You sure you want to?" He's like, "Doesn't pay a lot of money." And I'm like, "I just want to coach. I don't care. I just want the opportunity to have my own side of the ball and learn on the fly kind of." And so he hired me to be the defensive coordinator, and it was awesome. I loved working for him. Terry Mangan's a great man. He's one of my all-time favorite people in lacrosse, and he did so much for me. And it was actually great being at Lafayette. It was closer to home than I thought. My wife was living here and up in New Haven because she was working in Brantford, and so I was kind of commuting from Connecticut. I'd drive home after practice every Saturday at like noon. I'd drive home, and at 4 a.m. on Monday morning, I would get back in the car and drive to Easton, Pennsylvania. And then I'd be there for the week, and that's what I would do every week in the fall. And in the spring, she came to me. She came to all our games. So it was pretty cool. But, I learned a lot working for Terry. I got to meet Chris Doctor, who was my roommate, and he was our offensive coordinator. So him and I became like best friends, and we were together all the time. And it was like one of those things where you think it would get old, but it never was. Like I really enjoyed being around him. Got to hang out with Coach Lawson. I don't know if you ever met Coach Lawson, but he was a tremendous, and Bill Lawson, he was the old coach at Lafayette. He was a tremendous individual, one of my all-time favorite people. He was our volunteer that year, so I hung out with him all the time. He was a great resource for me, along with Coach Mangan. And met a lot of different people, became pretty tight with the whole UMass crew because of Coach Mangan.
Right.
So it kind of broadened my horizons to a different group of people than I was used to being with all the time. And it was good. It ended up being a good move for me, and it ended up being something that kind of restarted my love for lacrosse and
right.
kind of jump-started my career for the third time.
So I'm curious, you mentioned, you resigned, and then over that summer, you worked a lot of camps, but you were basically stepping back from the sport a little bit. But you mentioned that you fell back in love with the sport. What was it about that time that made you fall back in love with it?
It was just the sport. I can't really tell you what specifically it was. Yeah. It was honestly, it hit me at 205 that summer at Townsend. I used to work 3 sessions at 205 every summer. I love 205. It's where I became, me and a bunch of the guys that I hang out with that have become my best friends right now. Yeah. It started at 205. And it was during 205 where I was like, I love lacrosse, man. I just love doing this. I love coaching. I love everything about it. And just hanging out with Messi and a lot too that summer, traveling around with him a lot, and traveling around with Double a lot. It made me just kind of fall back in love with the sport. And, thank God for Coach Mangan, gave me an opportunity. And then when the Hartford job opened in the summer of 07, the summer of 08, I was like, I had then proposed to my girlfriend, she's now my fiance. We were planning a wedding. She lived in Connecticut. I kind of had to get home. I had to get back home. I had to get back to Connecticut. I didn't like being away from her. Right. The Hartford job opened up, and I talked to Coach Lawrence, and we talked a lot, and he offered me the job, and it was the greatest decision I ever made. The greatest decision I ever made was working for Peter Lawrence. I love that guy. He is just a great person. We became family friends, and the amount of times I spent at his house with his wife and his kids, and my wife would come up and we'd hang out all the time. And it was, he was a good person to work for, because he let me do, and same thing with Coach Mangan. They kind of just let me do what I needed to do. As long as it was within what they wanted, they let me be me. They let me coach, and they let me learn. And it was a really good time for me. And I kind of found exactly what I wanted to do. And I found exactly what my passion was in the sport. And I learned a ton. I learned so much from those guys, and kind of behind the scenes helping me was, Coach Tierney and Coach Metzbauer were always kind of there. I could always call. Spent a lot of time with Metzi and watching film. Spent a lot of time with Coach Tierney about defensive stuff and just kind of life of lacrosse. And those two guys did a lot for me in my career and did a lot for me in my life. And so they kind of hold a special place for me and my wife. They were great for both of us.
Right. So what I'm hearing is the common denominator at Lafayette and Hartford was it basically just because, they gave you the space to sort of operate freely, sort of to, to do things the way that you wanted to do them?
Yeah, they let me be me, and I learned that maybe me was a little too much sometimes. So I had to calm the me down. Right. And I learned that while I was at Hartford, but they let me be me, and I'm a passionate individual, and they kind of let me kind of coach like that, and they let me do what I want, do what I thought was best. And again, it was within what Coach Mangan and what Coach Lawrence wanted, but they let me kind of figure it out on my own. And I appreciate that. And that's kind of the way I am with our guys here is I let them coach. I interject where I need to, and I tell them if something's being done that I'm not really cool with, I'll let them know. But for the most part, they know what I want. They know what I'm looking for. And, they do a great job of coaching our kids here. And I think it's pretty cool the way that dynamic is. And it takes a lot for a head coach to do that. It's not easy. And so I give those guys a lot of credit and I have a lot of respect for them for letting me do that. And so that's how I've learned to kind of be the way I am.
Right. And so, so I guess now that we're at Sacred Heart, tell us how that job came about. How did you end up back at Sacred Heart as the head coach?
It was an opportunity. And when we had a lot of success at Hartford. We won the conference in 11, 12 and 13. We made the playoffs, and we were a very good team. And We had recruited so many good players that eventually won it again in 2016, the America East. So it's like I knew they were going to be good. I knew Hartford was going to be good for a long time, and I had a great job there, but I wanted to be a head coach. And I looked at the opportunity here at Sacred Heart as a spot where I could go back to Fairfield, a place that I was comfortable with at Sacred Heart. I could be back in the town of Fairfield. It was actually closer. It paid more, obviously. And it gave me an opportunity to run my own shop. And I think that looking back on it, it was, again, it was the best decision I ever made. And it was not an easy decision, though. I was on the phone with Coach Tierney a lot, and actually Coach Alberici helped me out a lot with this job, and talking to Coach Lawrence consistently. And then all the guys that were there for me, all the people that have helped me out, my family especially, but then outside of my family, and just talking to Double D a lot about it. And he's like my uncle, he's like my big brother, my like Uncle Double. My kids call him Uncle Double. And so just talking to Double a lot about it, and talking to Coach Tierney and Coach Metz and all the people, and Coach Lawrence about it. And it seemed like the right fit. It seemed like something I can do. And I thought that I could make an impact. So far so good, knock on wood.
Right. So it seems like the common thread that I'm sort of hearing is it sounds like your career can basically just be summed up by the connections that you made, not only for the job opportunities, but also sort of, the mentorship when you need it, calling up, Coach Tierney and Coach Matchbauer and Coach Alberici when you need some advice. It's all about sort of the tight-knit community in lacrosse. Is that right?
Yeah, Coach Tierney told me something after I left Fairfield, and I was actually on the phone with him the night before my Lafayette interview because I was nervous. It was my first interview I'd ever gone on. I went and met with Coach Mangan, so I was really nervous.
Right.
And I was like, "Don't say Lehigh, don't say Lehigh, don't say Lehigh." And what's the first thing I said when I showed up?
Of course,
I
Lehigh.
applied to Lehigh. I was like, "Oh, you dummy, we're stupid." But and he's like, "You mean Lafayette?" And I was like, "Oh boy, I'm not getting this job." And so I was so nervous. And Coach Tierney, I was again just talking to Double about some stuff, and then Coach Tierney was like, what you got to remember is it's not about the 2 hours of the year that we're opponents. It's about the other 364 days that we have to get along, and it's about the relationships we make. That's the most important thing about this game. And I've always remembered that. And it's something that's kind of stuck with me forever. And it's something that as I go about my daily life, when people ask for my help, I think about that. It's like, it's the relationships we make and the people that look to us for guidance and assistance that make the difference and really why we coach.
Right.
So that's really, I think, what stayed with me and allowed me to kind of move up, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. But to be where I am, it's about the relationships you make and the people you meet and how you treat each other.
Right.
It's not hard to say thank you and please and hello and good morning. And even if you're arguing with somebody, arguments don't last forever. And holding a grudge just burns energy.
Right. Right. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And that story about Coach Tierney is, the one thing that I always think about is, and I never understood why he was doing it until afterwards, was after every single game where I would play him at Virginia, he would pull my dad aside and just give my dad little pointers to pass along to me about things that I needed to do better. Right. And I remember being like, why is he doing that? Why would he even take the time? I thought maybe it was, he's family friends, but I mean, now looking back on it, it's just so obvious that, that's his outlook, right? It's like, yeah, I'm going to play Joe once, maybe twice a year, but I want to develop a relationship with his family, or I do already have a relationship with his family, and I want to give back to that. I mean, that's a great Coach Tierney story. So, I'm keeping my eye on the clock here, but if you can you walk us through what a typical in-season practice is for Sacred Heart?
Yeah, I think it depends on the day. We what we do is we structure the week depending on what we're looking forward to for Saturday. It depends if we have a Saturday game or Tuesday game. So a Monday is just kind of a typical it's really a skills practice where we do some extra stretching. We do a lot of shooting. We do a lot of defensive walkthrough stuff and slide and recover drills and skeleton defense and offensive stuff. And we compete a little bit, but it's really just about kind of maintenance and getting the guys that didn't play on Saturday reps to get them better. And then, so it's a shorter day. We do a lot more film. We start film at 9:30. So we do film from 9:30 to 10:15, and then we go out on the field at 10:30, and our strength coach comes out and stretches us out and does some stuff. And then Tuesday's a little bit more difficult. Tuesday's our offensive day, so we start doing an offensive game plan on Tuesdays. But then we also do our some defensive stuff that day too. So we're in the film room again at 9:30 till and we get in a little bit earlier, 9 o'clock on Tuesday in the film room. So we get out on the field at 10. And it's more of kind of an offensive focus day, but we're still working on us. We're focusing on Sacred Heart and the things that we need to do to get better. Then Wednesday is the defensive day. We start working on our defensive game plan, or we continue to work on our defensive game plan, but it's more focused on the defensive game plan on Wednesday. We call it Warrior Wednesday, where we battle for our belt, and the guy that has a good week of practice from Wednesday to Wednesday or does something to be a good teammate will earn the belt at the end of the day. So where you can see all that stuff on Twitter and Instagram and all that jazz that our assistant coaches that I don't know anything about. I'm terrible at the social media, but and so we do that, and it's a pretty competitive practice. It's a lot of it's a lot of up and down. It's a lot of it's a defensive practice, so there's a violence of action. The best way to describe it. Right. And then Thursday we start kind of pulling back on that stuff. We condition a lot on Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday we kind of fine tune the game plans on both sides. We get up and down a lot. You do a lot of transition. I mean, our whole world is based on transition. We're doing transition every day. But when Thursday is a real transition practice, we're getting up and down. We're working on rides and clears. We're doing man up, man down, special team stuff. We do our scouting report on Thursday. And then Friday we get into pregame practice, which is not just like a walkthrough. It's actually, we practice. We'll practice a little shorter and we'll do some fun drills. It's more up-tempo stuff. We'll review the game plan on both sides of the ball one more time. And Saturday we're rolling. Saturday we're playing. So
a couple questions from all that. So
we also lift on Monday and Thursday morning at 7 a.m. where lifting is very important to us. I'm very big into that and big into making sure that you're getting stronger, not just maintaining strength. So we lift with our strength and conditioning guys twice a week as well.
Right. And so a couple of questions. So one, the Warrior Wednesday stuff. I'm kind of curious. Can you give some of the examples about the things that players have won the belt for?
I'll give you a better example. Our athletic trainer got hit in the face with a ball while she was treating somebody and just continued to treat somebody. She got the belt once. So that's something like that. And it was one of our other guys. It's not necessarily one thing. It's something that you see guys doing over the week. If guys do a little bit extra, they do some extra stuff. You see a guy grab it and doing a little bit extra ball hunt. If we notice guys are doing extra work, if we notice guys are helping other guys out with certain things, if we notice guys are doing the little things to make us better, then that guy's going to earn the belt. That guy's going to earn the belt for the week. And it usually doesn't go to a starter. It usually goes to a second team guy or a backup goalie or our fifth defenseman or our fourth or fifth attackman. That's usually who it goes to because those guys are so important to getting the starters ready for the game. If they don't play hard in practice, we're not going to be good. We're never going to win games. And so we want to honor those guys and show that they're important. They're just as important as a Max Tuttle or a Joseph J.C. or Brooks Sutton or a Landon Kramer. Those guys are just as important to get those guys prepared.
Right. And so you said you guys are in the gym at 7 a.m. Is there a reason why you guys start so early, or is that just a function of, that's when you guys can get the room?
So, number one, it started as just a function, but then it just ended up being the easiest way to get everybody there at the same time. But I believe that we have an opportunity and a responsibility to make sure that our guys are prepared for when they leave us, right? And so for the rest of their lives, they're going to be waking up at 5, 6, 7 a.m. to go to work. And like, I wake up Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 4 a.m. I'm on the road by 4:30. I'm in the gym at 5. It's like I do it. It's something that I do all the time, and it's something that I've conditioned myself to. My son comes with me sometimes. But it's one of those things where our guys are going to be doing that for the rest of their lives. They have to be able to function at 8 a.m. or else they're not going to be successful, and they're not going to do well in their careers. And so that's one of the reasons we do it. We start the week at 7 a.m. We start the week bright and early Monday morning, thinking about what we're doing next and working on what we did on Saturday, but really concerning ourselves with who's next and thinking about the next play and the next game, the next moment. And that's what it's all about, and that's what it's all based on.
Right. That's exactly why I asked that question, because that's something that I always look back on in my time in college. And I actually don't know why, at Virginia, at Virginia and Syracuse, we practiced at 2, and then I think we went to the gym at 4. And I always wish that, now that I'm older and a little bit more mature, I wish that it would have been much better if we were getting in the gym or starting practice early, because it would have conditioned my body to that. I would have got used to it. So by the time I graduated college, that would just be another thing. Also, I bet you I would have been way more focused if I knew that I had a 6 a.m. practice the night before. It would have been much different. But back to your guys' schedule. So you mentioned that you guys look at film. And you said that Monday and Tuesday you guys are basically focusing on yourself. Are you guys watching film Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of yourself, and then the opponent Thursday, Friday? How does that work?
Monday's all us. I go in there and I do special team stuff. So riding, clearing, transition, face-offs, really just ride to clear transition stuff. And I talk about that and kind of a little recap of what I saw on both sides of the ball and my take. And we split up in O&D, and often Coach Chuck takes the offense and goes to one room, and Coach Skelly takes the D and goes to another room. And I kind of bounce back and forth from each room and listen to what's going on. But there's a lot of stuff on us on Monday. Tuesday's kind of a mix. It's finishing up us, but really kind of starting to focus on the other team. And then Wednesday's all the other team, Thursday's all the other team, Friday's all the other team, and then we're playing. So we spend 2 days on us and 3 days on the other team. It's pretty much how we figure it out. And even when we're focusing on the other team, it's more about us than it is the other team. Like, we're kind of saying, listen, we play this way. This is what we do. We're not going to change because we're not going to change this because we play Georgetown. They were very good. But we're like, this is what we do. This is how we play. We're just going to go play, and we'll see what happens. And like this week we play Furman. It's going to be the same thing. It's like we have to concentrate to make sure that we know what we're doing, so we have a game plan. But we play a certain style. We play our game. We're going to go play our game, and whatever happens, happens. We'll figure it out as we go.
Right. And when you guys are looking at upcoming opponents, how closely into the details are you looking? Are you looking at general tendencies, or are you looking at individual players?
I think it's both. I think you have to. If you don't do both, then you're not giving your kids an opportunity to be successful. It's like anything else. You got to be prepared. But we try to start in September to try to do as much as we can in the fall to prepare them for as much as we can. So when it's time to play, we can just revert back to be like, hey, remember when we did this? Remember when we did this drill? Remember, this is why we did this drill, because now we're working it on it here. You know what I mean? So we kind of plan it out from the beginning, just so we can figure it out as we're going. Most of the teams we play, we've already played. We played in years past. So there's not much that's going to change from year to year. There really isn't. Right.
Gotcha. And one final question on you guys. I guess this is more specifically about you. As a head coach, how are you preparing for an upcoming opponent? What are you thinking about? How are you preparing yourself for, say, that game on Saturday?
How I cannot screw it up. How can I stay out of the way? No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, for me, I want to know I want to know everything that's going on. I want to know what we're doing defensively, and I talked it out with Coach Skelly. Like, actually, as soon as we're done here, him and I are going to sit down and talk about our game plan. I talked the offensive stuff out with Coach Chuck. Matt Trapani, who does our face-off stuff. I talked with him about our face-off stuff. but by Tuesday, usually by now on Tuesday, we're all good. We know what we want to do because we've started talking about it honestly from like Thursday or Friday from last week.
Right.
But on game day, I'm just kind of, I used to be like a crazy person. I used to get all fired up and go in there and scream and yell and do all these speeches. But I'm like, now I still am fired up and I'm still excited because that's me. Like, I'm just an emotional person. And,
Right.
and our team thrives on emotion. Our team thrives on energy. And we always talk the two things you can control are energy and compete level. And so we're always competing and we're always trying to have a high energy level. But like for me on Saturday, I just want to, I try to tell myself every game, have fun. If my wife says that to me, hey, good luck today, have fun. And I say that every single time I send an email that's about the game, I put play fast, play hard, have fun. Because it's like there's only so many of these we get, man. You know, there's only so many of these we get to have, so we got to enjoy them.
Right.
We got to
right.
play
Absolutely.
hard. We got to work hard. We got to play hard. We got to do our jobs, and we got to run the systems and do the simple things and do the little things right. But we got to enjoy it because why else are we doing it? It's pointless unless we do that.
Right.
So that's my mindset, and that next play. I'm always trying to think about the next play. Said we just turned it over. Oh well, what are we going to do next?
Right.
And that's my thing to our guys all the time. Like, what's the next play? Make the next play. Think about the next play. If you screwed up, make up for it. Don't worry about it. It happened. You can't change it. Let's just make up for it. Let's keep working at it.
Right. Right. Makes sense. So just let's talk a little bit about the rule changes before I let you go. And again, I am keeping the eye on the clock. Talk about how do you guys feel about the shot clock? How is it how is it affecting your strategy? How are you guys preparing for it?
It doesn't really affect us at all. We have been kind of preparing for it since we changed our system and style of play in 2016, 17. It's like we're conditioned to play fast. So we're used to playing it. And having Mike here has been great because he's given us the opportunity to play it from like that. He's given us the MLL view of it a little bit. So our guys are very confident in the way he's teaching them to do things on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. It's just, you got to play defense for less time. It's like you can do a little bit different things now because you're doing it for less time. And, it's allowed us to, we don't panic. We just kind of play. And if there's a shot clock violation, there's a shot clock violation. We'll ride it back. Let's ride it back and get a fresh 80, and that's kind of our mindset. But I'm excited about it. I like all the new rule changes. I think that being on the committee, it was a great few days, and I think the committee did a great job, and I'm excited to see kind of this year to see how things go with all the changes we made.
Right. And what about the dive? How you guys? You know what? Actually, I guess two questions about this since you were on the committee. One, I am kind of curious where, how the dive got introduced back into the conversation. And was that something you guys have been talking about for years? It's just, I had never really played with the dive until I got to the MLL. The dive was never really a part of my playing career at any level. And from my understanding, the dive was made illegal for player safety, and it's back. And I'm sort of curious as to why. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about how that got reintroduced.
Well, there was actually no hard evidence saying that it was a safety issue, other than a couple of incidences, very rare incidences for the amount of time it happened. Right. And so that was kind of something where we took a lot of care in thinking about player safety. However, it was still a very big emphasis when we talked about it. And so when we decided to make the dive legal, we put in certain parameters to do it in a way that we thought would be safest for the goalie and for the diving player. But really it came about because of the semifinal game between Denver and and Maryland. Those two goals both should have counted, but they didn't because the player was in the crease, even though the ball had gone in the net. And so we thought that was unfair. Those are two great athletic plays that both should have counted, and they didn't for no reason. Right. The rule didn't make any sense. So we wanted to make it to where it was if the ball went in the back of the net before you hit the crease, before you hit the ground, it's a goal. And that kind of morphed into, well, let's bring the dive back. And there was players diving. I mean, we lost 4 games last year because goals were called back on dives when the ball was clearly in the back of the net, but our guy just ended up in the crease, even though he was pushed in the crease twice. Right. And the other time, his toe was like the Maryland goal where his cleat was in the crease, so it was no goal. Right, and so I was like, it's not fair. And all the other coaches agreed. We just had to try to figure out a way to work on it. And all the other people in the committee, we had to find a way to work on it to make it so it was fair, legal, and safe. And I think we've done that. And it's going to take some time for the rest to figure it out and for us to figure it out. But so far, so good. I mean, I don't know how many issues there have been in this past weekend, but it seems to be working pretty good so far.
Right. And what have you guys, maybe this is the same answer, but what have you guys done to prepare for it at all, if anything?
Oh, it's awesome. Like, we put the mat out. We got guys diving all over the place. I'm even doing it. I'm like, ooh, yeah. But it's, we tell our guys, just be smart with it. We're like, we don't really need to do it much in practice because you don't want to hurt yourselves. We don't want to hurt our goalies. So it's one of those things where if you have the opportunity to do it, do it. If you don't. It's like, it's still high risk, high reward play, which we kind of play like that. So it works in our favor, but it's just, if it's there, it's an opportunity, take it. Right.
Yeah. It fits into your game pretty well. All right. Well, Coach, listen, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I really do appreciate you taking the time. I had a blast having a conversation, but there's one question I've asked everybody who's come on the show. What are 3 things that everyone should do every day to get better at whatever it is they do? It doesn't have to just be lacrosse.
That's a good question. Number 1, I think it's take some time to yourself every day, whether it's 10, 15 minutes to just kind of sit down and watch TV or read a book or go to the gym or whatever it is. Take some time to yourself every day. Number 2, be grateful and thankful for what we have as individuals. We're pretty lucky to do what we do and play the sport we play and be able to have what we have. And so I think it's important to take stock of that daily. And honestly, the number 1 thing, love your family. Like, love your family. And that includes your teammates. That includes the guys on your team. That includes your best friends. If you're a religious person, that includes God or whoever, whatever you worship. It's love your family and let them know that, because you never know. Tell your family how much you love them and take care of your teammates and take care of your family, because they're the people that are going to be there when you need them, and they're going to be the people that they're going to need you at one point. So I think those are the 3 things. Take some time for yourself, love your family, and that's pretty much it.
Yep. All right. Well, Coach, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks so much for coming on. And I really had a blast.
No problem, Joe. Thank you. Good luck with everything. And if you need anything else, let me know. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the GameChanger Lacrosse podcast. I'm your host, Joe Uvoli. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Uvoli. You can find more episodes of the GameChanger Lacrosse podcast on The Season at theseason.gc.com. If you like the podcast, please take a second to give it a positive review on iTunes. This helps more people find the podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at GC Sports. And if you're a coach, a parent, or you run a travel or club team, check out GameChanger Team Manager in the App Store. It's an essential, all-in-one scheduling and communication app for lacrosse coaches and parents. GameChanger Team Manager is free, it's easy to use, and it doesn't serve ads. Learn more at gc.com/team manager. Until next time, keep working and keep getting better.